The 18 Strong Podcast, episode number 124 with Eric Davis, Navy SEAL sniper.
But we can intentionally produce a perfect picture, a perfect game in our head, and that programs our subconscious and our self-image to perform a certain way.
Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast, where you get direct access to the world's greatest experts on training harder, practicing smarter, and playing better golf. Now, here's your host, Jeff Pellizzero.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast, where this week we have a pretty incredible guest on the show. I must say that we've had some great guests in the past, but this one may be the most interesting one that I can recall to date. We have Eric Davis, former Navy SEAL sniper instructor, on the show. And when I realized I had the opportunity to bring Eric on, I was thinking, man, this is so applicable to what happens on the golf course, but in a way more severe setting. So just to give you a basic background on Eric, Eric served our country as a U.S. Navy SEAL and a decorated veteran of war on global terror. He's been recognized as one of the premier sniper instructors in the U.S. military and served as a master training specialist at the SEAL Sniper School. In fact, Eric trained both Marcus Luttrel and Chris Kyle, who you guys might know from the books and movies Lone Survivor and American Sniper. Eric's an expert in technical and physical surveillance and was part of an elite, hand-selected group to perform intelligence collection in some of the scariest places in the world. He spent years developing and writing curriculum for the SEALs teams and was really very instrumental in reducing the failure rate of the SEALs sniper course. And we're actually going to discuss how golf had a big influence on how he was able to do this. Since his time in the SEALs, Eric has become a speaker, an educator, and a coach in the world of corporate performance and leadership training. He's the author of Raising Men, Lessons Navy SEALs Learned from Their Training and Taught to Their Sons, and he has an upcoming book and project, which we're going to talk about in the show, called Habits of Heroes, Being the Hero in Your Own Life. So I love this episode because it's kind of a completely out-of-the-box interview for a golf podcast. You know, if there's anyone who knows performance under pressure, it is definitely the Navy SEALs and Eric, who has been in charge of training these guys to perform under pressure. And, you know, to think that these guys are on missions thousands of miles away from their families, they're in a place that they're not supposed to be. They're, you know, if they make a mistake, it could likely cost them their life. That kind of brings a whole new perspective of controlling your nerves and, you know, the pressure that we feel when we're standing over a 4-foot putt. So I just think it's fascinating to bring in the mindset that these guys have in their training and on their missions to what we're doing here, for golfers on the golf course and in their training and workouts. So in this episode, we're going to talk about quite a few things. We talk with Eric about how they use the same mental management process that a golfer would use to reduce the failure rate at sniper school and what the process was there. He tells an incredible story of how golf literally saved the life of a prisoner of war and the mental visualization that he did that allowed this guy to shoot par on his very first hole coming back on the course, which is just incredible. Then we talk about the idea of having a contingency plan. So when things don't go right, when the ball, you know, doesn't fly straight and far like you want it to, what's your backup plan? How do you fix that? Where do you go from there? And then we also discuss something that Eric calls the trifecta of performance. So there's so much information in this episode that relates not just to what the SEALs have done, but you know what you can do to take some of these mental tricks, mental processes, and implement them into your life on a daily basis, as well as when you're on the golf course. All right, I just want to take a quick moment to thank our sponsor for the episode before we get into the interview. And the sponsor for today's show is Super Speed Golf. Now, I'm sure you've heard me talk about them before, but I have to tell you that the popularity of these clubs are kind of getting out of control. The last I heard, these guys are working with at least 45 PGA Tour players, and that number is definitely growing very rapidly. In fact, I just saw a picture on their Instagram feed of Charles Howell III at the Career Builder Challenge with his new set of Super Speed golf clubs. So let me just kind of describe what these are in case you don't know. It's basically an overspeed training system that helps you get massive gains in speed in your golf swing. So basically it's a 3-club set where each club is a slightly different weight. The first 2 clubs are slightly lighter than an average driver, and the third one is a little bit heavier than an average driver. And this allows your body and your neurological system to feel a faster swing, and that your body can move faster than it thought it could in this swinging motion. So you then build up, after swinging the lighter clubs, you build up to the heavier club, which provides just a little extra resistance. But the key here is that it doesn't slow your body down, and that's super important. So your body's getting a little bit stronger because of the resistance, but it's still moving faster than if you were swinging your regular driver. Now, this is a good time to mention how important this really is. You know, we've all seen the old, and used probably the old weighted club, or taken two clubs to swing around to loosen up for your round of golf and when you're on the driving range. But studies have recently shown that if you take two golf clubs and swing them together, your very next swing with a regular club is going to be 30% slower than your normal swing would have been, which I think is crazy. So I think it's time that you get on the super speed train before your buddies do, because they're going to be out driving you if you don't. If you want to get your hands on a set, just go to superspeedgolf.com and use the code 18strong to get your 10% off. I also wanted to mention that they do have a new junior version for all the youngsters, which I still need to get my hands on for my little guy and girl. And for all of you baseball fans, they're actually now starting to take the baseball world by storm with a new product called Super Speed Slugger, which you can keep an eye out. I think it's superspeedslugger.com, in fact, for the website and information for that. So they're apparently making a huge wave, even a bigger impact on swing speeds in baseball than they are in golf, which is just phenomenal. So again, that's superspeedgolf.com and use the code 18strong. All right, let's get into the interview with our buddy Eric Davis, former Navy SEAL sniper instructor, and learn how we can perform under pressure like the SEALs do when we're on the golf course. Eric, welcome to the 18 Strong podcast, and I have to say, I am super excited for today's show. I think this could possibly be one of the most interesting shows. I have no idea where it's going to go. I know what we're going to talk about a little bit, but with your background, I think this is going to be phenomenal.
Oh, thank you. No pressure there. So
none at all. I don't want to build any expectations or anything like that. But I mean, first of all, let's just give the audience a little bit of your background, because I think that many people are kind of going to be thinking, why in the heck is there a Navy SEAL sniper on a golf podcast? So if you could just kind of give us a little bit of your history, kind of what made you go into the SEALs, and then, kind of your story from there.
Sure. So the quick history is when I was about 15 years old, my dad, who is like a 6'2" or 3", black hair, olive skin, sheriff of our county, bishop of our church. I'm 5'9", red hair, freckles. So I got all the good genes, obviously. But this guy was a guy I wanted to be like. All I knew was to be like my father. That was the entire plan. He got sick. He had what they call clinical depression, diabetes, and a few other things. So he was struck down, not down, but he started to kind of check out a little bit when I was about 15 or so. That I was just old enough to recognize that I wasn't ready to be without a father, without a leader, and I was too young, obviously, not to have one. So I knew I had to go find something. Personal development, self-help, you name it, I read it, I listened to it, whatever it was back in the day. None of it works. None of it does, it's all reading. A lot of it's entertainment. I'm sure some of it works, but for the most part, I was like, man, this is not working. So I did the natural thing, and I went to become a Navy SEAL so that I can learn from what I considered the greatest men on the planet, how to lead, how to perform, how to be a man. Also, I wanted to set up my background so that I could be a sheriff like my father. So that's what got me started on my journey. And we'll no doubt dig into this as we go. But to answer that question, why would we have a SEAL sniper on a golf show? My journey led me all the way to, SEAL training and beyond. Then I became a sniper instructor, had the tremendous opportunity to get to train guys like Marcus Luttrel, Chris Kyle of American Sniper. This amazing time in life. But something else that occurred when we were there is SEAL sniper school is very difficult, and a lot of guys were failing. It wasn't uncommon for a platoon to send 3 guys with the hopes of 1 guy passing. One of the things we did is we significantly reduced that attrition rate. And one of the key, the fundamental way we did that is we started teaching mental management. And when the time's right, I'll tell you a little bit of a story about a prisoner of war in Vietnam who did nothing but mentally play a game of golf in his head. And when he came back, he played one of his best games ever after not having touched a club But what he did is he proved out what mental management was. And then there's a whole story about us bringing in a gentleman by Lanny Basham and how we use that to reduce the failure rate of sniper school. So I don't think you were expecting this, but it literally is a golfer saved SEAL snipers and their failure rate. And there's a whole story behind that.
Oh my God. I can't wait to dig into that. Now, how long were you going on missions? When did you get into the SEALs? When did you officially stop going on active missions? And then I know you said that you got into the training role of it as well. And then what are you doing today?
Sure. Chronologically, I went in 1990. I turned 18 in boot camp. I became a corpsman, a medic, and I did that for 5+ years. I was a Marine Reconnaissance Corpsman, which was their special operations. Now that's part of MARSOC, so it's officially Special Forces now. So I went through that training. Actually went to SEAL training, quit, got out of the Navy, and then came back. And there's a whole story about following your dreams, pursuing your passion that comes out of that piece. Came back, became a SEAL. I was a SEAL for 10 years, 5 of those years as a SEAL sniper instructor. It was a time in my life where I dove into human performance, so they kept me there. The Navy said, we need to keep you here because you're affecting the course. Me and a couple other guys, of course, were affecting the course and the trajectory of it so greatly. The other 5 years, I spent some of those years with SEAL Team 3, went on 2 different deployments with them to the Middle East. I've pirated over 20 ships, people smuggling things out of Iraq and other places in the Middle East, like Black Hood, swinging onto a boat, creeping up in the middle of the night. That, as far as my action type missions, those are the coolest that I got. Not the coolest that are out there, but the coolest that I got. So I get to say I've pirated like 20 plus ships, which is kind of cool for me, and mostly my kids too. After that, I went into intelligence, human intelligence, technical surveillance, physical surveillance, and my last mission was doing a mission inside of that category of work. No military clothing, just that kind of interesting, different kind of work. I can't do a ton of detail about it, but that was the last mission. And that was like 2007, I think I did that one. And I was going into denied areas of the world that we weren't allowed access to gather intelligence and information. And then in 2008, I got out. And the quick history from there is ever since I've been out in 2008, I basically went to a large financial firm and I said, hey, fundamentally training SEAL snipers is the same as training sales teams. And they believed me. And I obviously had a little more story about it, but I'm like, hey, I studied sales. I studied business with a very uncommon group. I mean, I learned a lot of this. Human intelligence is about building reports, basically a sales process to recruit intelligence assets. It's the same thing. And it worked, and it worked very, very well. And I learned very, very quickly that my time as a SEAL sniper instructor, and the things I learned, perseverance, courage, confidence, like all those different things can absolutely apply to somebody in any domain, especially in the domain of training and helping men not only perform better in their jobs, but actually make sure that their job doesn't mean that they're going to sacrifice living a good and happy, healthy life, which again, things like golf, surfing, are all part of that life, and a lot of guys don't know that. And I hope we're going to hit that today too, because I'm going to give fellas some permission to play more golf once we get going, because they need to.
Oh, I love that. Man, I have to say my head is kind of spinning with so many different questions that I could ask you, and we could probably go on for hours and hours talking about some of the different stories and lessons and everything. Let's go back to that idea of the mental management process that you talked about and the prisoner of war. Give us a little more detail on that whole story, the whole process, and how you guys took that and integrated that into the SEALs, and then what can that mean for the golfers that are listening?
The gentleman that did this, his name was Lieutenant Commander Jack Sands, and he became a Vietnam prisoner and spent somewhere around like 6 years there. And what he said that he did, and this is from a book called Freedom Flight, written by Lanny Basham, Bassham. Lanny came to our sniper school and actually taught us mental management. And again, huge impact. So I want to make sure I give him full credit up front. Amazing gentleman. He was an Olympic gold medalist as a shooter. And he has another book called With Winning in Mind, which basically takes you through the process of his story of how he developed mental management and how you can do it too. And he'll use golf examples, shooting examples, baseball examples. It applies everywhere. So there's my unshy pitch for his 2 books. Go buy them and read them, especially if you're a golfer. But here's the story. So this gentleman, Commander Sands, stuck in the prisoner camp. And he said what he did is he would vividly imagine, I'm quoting, vividly imagined hitting thousands of perfect shots off the tee straight down the fairway, quote unquote, from the book. So what had happened when he left Vietnam, he had told someone he had two things he wanted. He wanted some ice cream that he hadn't had in 6 years, and he desperately wanted to play golf. Now, of course, he wanted to see his family and all of those things, but you get stuck in a prison for 6 years, you're thinking about your family, you're thinking about all kinds of things to include beaches and golf courses, whatever, you're surviving. What happened is he landed, and I believe it was in North Island, right? That's right in Coronado, California, where we trained. And he got off the plane. I think he hit Hawaii, got his ice cream there, landed in North Island. There's a golf course on North Island, and he said, "Wait, can I play there?" A really cool story. I'm not going to do it justice, nor should I. It's better in the book. But he tells a story about going in there ragtag. The guy saying, "Hey, dude, you can't play without, you have to have another member to play with." Someone dinged a glass, said, like, "Look, check this out. Here's my name. I was a prisoner of war for 6 years. Will anyone play with me?" Long story short, of course, people are like, "Yeah, let's hit the course." Long story medium, he went out and I think I'm looking at my notes here. So new shoes, clubs out of the box. He shot par golf on his first hole. So that's after 6 years of being boxed up. And here's the key part to the mental management. And this is a quote from the book. "I had seen thousands of times in my mind, it could be no other way." So what he's saying is that he has seen these perfect shots thousands and thousands of times in his mind, because if you're imagining golf, you're not imagining woofing it in front of the clubhouse, smacking somebody in the back of the head with the ball because you cut it 90 degrees somehow, which I've done. That's not what you imagine, right? After 6 years, you start imagining these perfect shots. The birth of mental management. The idea that we can mentally, and there's some more detail in this in Lanny's book, and we'll probably hit it today, but we can intentionally produce a perfect picture, a perfect game in our head, and that programs our subconscious and our self-image to perform a certain way. And that beats real life physical practice a lot, because real life physical practice comes with its shares of up and downs, but mental management, mental practice is always perfect.
I've heard the stories of, I forget who it was specifically, but an Olympic athlete in the hospital visualizing, and then, they've even done studies on EMGs of the person's body when they're visualizing themselves training or running or, whatever it was that study looked at, but that they actually had muscle activation in certain muscles that were the same things that they would be using if they were actually running. And so that visualization process definitely plays into, whatever their sport is, whatever their activity is. How did you guys then take that specifically into the SEAL school to help these guys and improve the failure rate?
So there's stories of, I think it was Carlos Hathcock, who was a famous sniper from Vietnam. I believe it was a story of him when he was competing that he would, once his shot cracked off, he didn't even look up at the target. He's like, "Yeah, perfect shot," every single time. Again, another aspect of mental management. So inside of the sniper program, what we did is you can break down your process. Just like a golfer can, okay, I'm going to do a putt. And my putt is comprised of X amount of steps. For a sniper, okay, I'm going to take my shot. I'm going to mentally rehearse my program of boom, getting in my natural point of aim, point of impact, getting my body position, my grip, my breath, my target focus, all of the aspects that make a perfect shot, all the way up to that gentle trigger squeeze that surprises you and your bullet goes right into the bullseye. That's how you use it. So now we shifted from a sniper would get down and mechanically go through those checklists. His spotter would tell him, he'd learn to do those things just like a golfer would learn probably the 30 to 50 different little things they want to set their body up. But instead of okay, I'm supposed to do this, this, and that, and you set your body up and swing, the sniper could do this thing 20 times if they had to before taking the shot, just like a golfer could, right? Mm-hmm. So that was the primary difference. We started teaching this mental management technique where these guys would do perfect practice prior to every shot. And it went from having this attrition rate that could sometimes hit double digits to less than 5% by the time we were done. Because think how much perfect practice these guys were getting. If you're only doing real practice, again, every shot's not going to be the shot you want to cement into your subconscious or your self-image. But when you put mental management into it, every shot is. You're programming your brain.
So let me ask you this, because golfers tend to overanalyze their technique, their positions, things like that. how would you, or what would you recommend for somebody, do they do this when they're getting up on the tee box? Sometimes we see golfers that actually stand on the tee box, close their eyes, they visualize that. Do they do this on a daily basis? Or what would you also recommend for somebody that tends to overanalyze what they're doing in their swing, getting in these different positions and really kind of letting that overtake their natural feel and flow of a swing?
So the word, when we say overanalyze, what we're saying there is that they're doing too much, meaning that it's now a detriment. Like if I overtrain in muscle training, I'm not breaking my muscles down so they can build back up. I'm now breaking them down and keep breaking them down, and I'm going backwards. So first is to recognize overanalyzing, analyzing too much is a detriment to your performance. And the reason I'm bringing that up, because it's the same thing as working too much, thinking too much about work, stressing over things like that. Like you got to recognize that at some point you need to let the brain rest so that it can build the muscle, the synapses, everything it needs to. So I want to touch on that overanalyze. That word over means not good, right? Mm-hmm. So how you would look at that is there are so many books and videos and tips, and they're like, here's the magic formula. And one of the things I learned, I have a formula I called PAID. It's purpose, action, information, debrief. And I call it the formula for becoming an expert at becoming an expert. And it's a fundamental formula, meaning it applies everywhere. So in the context of analyzing my performance and how much mental management should I do, you have to tune your performance, or you have to tune the activities to your performance. Every individual, like if they want to lower their cholesterol or blood sugar or get more fit or get happy or be less stressed out, they have to take actions and then measure and monitor what those actions produce. So I'd say the same thing for the golfer. It's not just this like punched out, like here's your program you do. Each individual golfer has to tune his body tune those actions to have his body produce the result. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Did I hit that question?
Yeah, absolutely. And so when these guys get over the ball, and I don't want to necessarily always just focus on them standing over a ball and getting ready to hit a shot, but we'll talk about some of the just general habits and everything as far as the training side and health and fitness and stuff like that too. But many situations, especially pressure-filled situations, a guy will stand over a putt or on a tee box, and those waves of emotion can definitely take hold and can impact what goes on in that next swing. Obviously, snipers probably are in the most extreme situation that we can ever imagine and probably can't imagine. How do you teach these guys, or what were some of the methods and practices that you guys used to be able to calm your body, be able to not let those emotions take over when you have to execute in the most extreme situations?
So there would be part of your mental management routine, your pre-shot routine. That would be a perfect example. Like, okay, when I stand over the ball, I can feel the pressure. Now, a little bit of performance pressure has you perform better. It's built into us, right? Like, okay, we got some stress here. We perform better. We also perform better when we're just having fun with something. So I boxed in London, England at the beginning of November. I've never boxed before. I trained in jiu-jitsu. I trained like a couple months, and I'm like talking a big match, big venue, SEALs versus SAS. The whole thing was crowd filled, going into a boxing ring. Boom. I had zero stress, zero nervousness, nothing to go into it. Because it's like me to do things that I haven't done before, and it's like me to fail, but to do my best. So I have a mental program of which I go through and like, okay, I'm not going to focus on those things. I'm going to focus on my process and what I'm going to do. And I know it always ends up being good enough, or it doesn't. And if it's not good enough, I always get better. That's part of my mental management. So if guys are having performance stress, they need to tweak their mental program, right, to put themselves in a state where they can perform. Now, there's something, again, from Lanny Basham's book. It's called The Trifecta of Performance. And what that is you're going to develop your subconscious state. So we go and we practice over and over again, so that way our body is now subconsciously making the movements of the swing, right? When you get your golf swing down, you're not thinking about the 150 different elements anymore. You're just swinging the club. That's now become subconscious. The other piece is conscious state. so that we can concentrate on the wind, the lay of the ground, any other factors that are going to affect the ball's performance. And then the third one is self-image. That's, again, where the mental management comes in. So for me, I'm like, okay, being a SEAL is all about always going beyond your limits, so you're always failing. They push you past all the time. So for me, my mental management program is like, oh, yeah, I'll probably stumble and fall at some point, but it's going to be a growth thing. But for other people, that could not be the case. But their self-image, it needs to be like them to hit the ball, like it's like us to hit the target. And if your self-image is there, you don't have an overextension of performance stress, right? If I step up to a golf club, I'm not, a golf ball, I'm not like shaking like, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss. My self-image has already been trained. It's been tuned through the mental management process so that it's like me to perform. Now, like you said, this isn't why golf and things like golf and shooting. We are built to hunt. We are built to develop our brains. We are built for these kinds of things, and we can't do it all in a single domain. You take everything I just said and you get up speak in front of a group. You do a sales call. You make a big project move in your business. It's all the same thing. Trifecta of performance. My conscious state, so I can concentrate on the dynamic factors around me. My subconscious is going to handle my swing, and my self-image tells me that it's like me to perform this way in this situation, so I'm not too nervous.
What if you don't necessarily have that self-image built yet? So it's not, you're standing over that ball, or let's even talk about maybe, I know that there's a lot of guys and girls listening more on the fitness and health side that have, goals around just improving their body image, their, getting leaner, losing weight, getting stronger, all this stuff. What if they don't have that self-image of that's them yet? How do you go about helping them build that? What can we work on in those respects?
So the self-image is developed through that perfect practice of mental management, that mental program. Mm-hmm. Again, so what we're doing is we're building that up. Either we're going to increase our self-image by hitting the bullseye or dropping the ball right where we want it physically, or we're going to do it mentally. That's where self-image comes from, right? Like, okay, I'm going to succeed. So we either need to drill that through our head. Now, what I would say is what people do is they go too far. So if I've played golf off and on in my life. I'm by no means an avid golfer. And years ago, I got to the point where I can make it through 18 holes without hurting anybody. But my self-image I would know, like, okay, it's going to be, I'm learner. My self-image is I'm a competitive learner, right? The world is dynamic. It's always changing. You can't go to school anymore, learn a job, and then just boom, that learning works for the next 30 years. So this self-image process of being a competitive learner, it's called the beginner's mindset. That's where I would help people with. Like, okay, if you have a hard time, there's people out there that have a hard time with failure. I've heard people saying like, yeah, I don't fail. That's the most ridiculous thing in the world. If you don't fail, you don't grow. You're not doing anything beyond yourself. So I would say those two things. One, learn mental management, understand how to produce a self-image through actual physical results or mental results. And two, you got to bring that thing down a notch and say, okay, I'm a beginner. So what I expect to do is get up and put in an incredible amount of effort and work, and that's my self-image, right? There's a study, I think it's Carol Dweck, where she took a bunch of fifth graders and she gave them a test and they did good. And one group, she said, oh man, you must be very, very smart. Good job. And the other groups, she said, oh, you must have worked very, very hard. Good job, right? That's mindset. That's self-image. So those kids, when given a choice for another more complicated test, the ones that were really, really smart, quote unquote, they didn't want to take it because they didn't want to break being really, really smart. The hard workers, right? They're like, oh yeah, hit me because I'm going to do hard work. I'm going to get rewarded for it. Does that see where I'm going with self-image? You got to set yourself up for a success.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Carol Dweck stuff, and I've heard that study before, and just talking about, the people that are willing to, I think she calls it grit a lot, that have that grit in them, that are just willing and they have that drive, and they teach themselves that that's who they are. They work hard and they achieve things. And I think that that's so important that we really realize that we have to put the work in. We have to put the time in. One thing that we've really been concentrating on a lot on the podcast and talking with a lot of different folks about, and people that have contacted us about just, their fitness goals, their health goals, is the importance of habits and building those into your routines, not necessarily that, it's always about the quick fix and getting the win now or tomorrow, but focusing on the little things that you have to do every single day. And I know that, your new book, which is coming out very soon, I think hopefully will be out by the time this episode releases, is called Habits of Heroes. Give us a little idea of kind of the background of the book and how habits have played an important role in what you've done with the SEALs and in your own profession.
Yeah, so what I'm getting ready to release is the Habits of Heroes, being the hero in your own life, and that will be a short ebook, which will be, when this releases, it'll be right on front and center on my homepage. Somebody can go drop their email, download it, and it's the precursor to the book. So there's a bit of a story here. What I'm doing is I'm taking a small. The Habits of Hero ebook is about like where we fail, and it's pointed to men, and it's talking about tons of performance failures that we run into that we're blind to. And what I'm doing with that particular launch is I'm going to be taking 7 people over the next 12 months, a very small group, and what we're going to do is make that transition from this kind of world of infotainment. There's so much good information and knowledge out there, right? Like on this podcast, we're vis-a-vis Lanny Basham and my mouth, we're delivering some really powerful stuff, but information and knowledge without action is completely useless. It's actually more than useless. It's worse than useless because it's going to burn you up inside, because now we have expectations of performing better. We're excited. And what we're going to do is not do anything again, which is going to cause depression, anxiety, and have us feel bummed, right? Yeah. So Habits of Heroes, the big book, is all about accessing people who have not been touched by kind of our cultural evolution that stuck us in cubicles and computers, and seeing what they're doing, what are their daily practices. And it's a call to action for action. Like you said, it's all about our practices. Today, we are a result of the practices we've been in for the last 5 months, the last 5 years, the last 10 years, whatever you want to call it. So in all cases, again, in golf, back to that self-image thing, like, okay, what am I going to be proud of? Am I going to be proud of dropping, sending that ball down the fairway and dropping it right by the hole or inside of it? Or do I value myself based on my ability to, whatever it is, golf or study or whatever, based on my ability to get up every day and spend 30 minutes on the range? And the answer is get up every day and spend 30 minutes on the range as a metaphor for, or the reality for golf and a metaphor for anything in life. People need to stop trying and have to start training. Otherwise, they're just going to be stuck.
I like that.
Forever.
I like that. You and I, we were kind of conversing back and forth before the show, and you mentioned kind of connecting the game of golf to more than just being a game. You even used the term warrior spirit. What exactly did you mean by that?
SEALs, there's a certain fight. When we do our hand-to-hand fight training, they really drill this into this. But SEALs organize around everything as if it's going to be life or death. So every conflict, every potential fight that we're in, any tactical situation, we're like, okay, this could go to the death. That has you move in a very different way. And it's not this like, oh, I'm serious, we're going to die. You become used to it. It's not like you're running around freaked out. It's just like a photographer would notice beautiful pictures. We notice threats. It's the same idea. It's where swagger comes from, right? It's where, instead of looking at threats only, you're starting to look at targets. It's just a different mindset. When you look at something like, how do I say it? So people look at time off, recreation, downtime, sleep, diet, exercise as electives. They look at them as things to do once we've worked enough to make enough money to give ourselves enough time. And it's totally backwards. Recreation, relaxation, diet, exercise, sleep, a few other things, those are what has us perform. Golf is a beautiful metaphor for it. It's a beautiful space for it because it has you lock onto a certain level of focus that will block out the rest of your life. Everybody needs to be, because you can't just show up and play golf without paying attention. So any sport, any activity that requires a certain amount of focus has you block out the rest of your life and allows your brain to start to rest and recover and start to reset itself so that it can perform again. People, especially today, they wear like things like working really hard and not sleeping like a badge of honor, when really it's a badge of failure, or it's the precursor to failure. So whether it's like golf, for me, I like to surf and paddleboard. whatever that activity is, those things are not electives. They're absolutely required, because that's what we need for deep work. There's a book from Cal Newport. It's called Deep Work. And he's like, that's the value of today's society. So many people are running around ultra busy, always on their phone, always on their text messages. Their brain never gets a chance to go deep in anything. And golf is one of those particular sports that requires just the right amount of concentration to have people step into that space. It's called the psychology of flow, if you've ever heard of that.
Yeah.
It puts you in the flow state, and flow state produces happiness, and happiness produces success because it produces concentration and your ability to design and invent new things.
There you go, guys. You have a Navy SEAL sniper telling you that you have to go play more golf. So I think you can tell your wife that was an instruction from the Navy SEALs. I think
real quick a little bit of a funny story. When I first left the teams and I went to an office, I remember coming home and asking my wife, I'm like, do you know where their showers and locker rooms are in these office buildings? What do I do? Talk to the manager? And she's like, what are you talking about? I go, well, when I go work out as part of my work day. She's like, working out's not part of people's work day, you idiot. I'm like, what? In the teams, you have like a huge walk-in closet size cage, and you do it every single day. But it's not just for physical health. It's because we need to be cognitively sharp so we can dominate on the battlefield. So just a funny story there. I still to this day can't believe there's office buildings without gyms and locker rooms in it, and even a cot for a nap. I don't understand, but yeah, I guess that's how you do it.
If you could give us a little insight into, because I know that people want to know more about your story and what the surroundings are like when you're in the SEALs, when you're at base camp, or what does a day look like in the life of a SEAL, or from your experience.
To probably broad stroke categorize that, I would say your work day is going to include working out, hour and a half, 2 hours. You have all the shower stuff, everything like that. It's going to include some form of training and studying, right? Because we are competing for our life, which is interesting. Knowledge-based economy we live in, right? The Industrial Revolution's over. We're not paid based on how hard we work. Same thing now. We're all supposed to be studying and training every day. That's how we succeed. And even after work, I can't imagine a SEAL that's not going to go and have fun, go get in trouble, run, ride dirt bikes. Sometimes the fun is misguided a little bit when we're younger, but I would say that's the basic formula for being a SEAL. Even inside of SEAL training, the most intense moment there is, you wake up, you work out. You move on to second and third phase, the dive phase, and then the land warfare and demolition phase. You work out, you're in the classroom, and then you go and do things. But even in SEAL training, the day, except for certain circumstances, the day ends, around dinner time, and then all of us would go out and go catch a movie or go do something enjoyable, because we know we're performing at the highest. Think about this. We're performing at the highest level possible, both mentally and physically, when you're inside of SEAL training. So it was a point of mine at the end of the day saying, hey guys, let's go grab, dinner number 2, or go hang out, or go do something fun and relaxing, because we need that so that tomorrow we can perform at this high level. It's the greatest gift I think I was given, was to perform at such a high level and recognize the need to care for yourself to sustain that performance. It's why that, and probably some borderline mental illness, as far as like, if I don't work out, or I'm one of those guys, if I don't work out and get, surf or do something like golf or something like that, it is not going to work. So it's clear I have to do it. But everybody really has to, because they need the effects of that kind of action. So those are our basic days. They're always like that.
I think that's such an important part that many of us miss, because as you said, we're so busy. We've got so many things on our plate, family, kids, business. We feel like we have to fit in our exercise. We have to fit in our training. We have to fit in our, practice at the range or whatever. And sometimes I think we lose sight of the fact that we need to enjoy these things and kind of make these a part of our everyday life, not necessarily because we have to, but because we love to. And it doesn't always have to look like the 1 hour long workout at the gym, or going to work with a trainer and, kind of get a little creative, or do some different things and go hiking, or like you said, surfing or whatever, to kind of get that physical nature of that. Something that you mentioned on the Good Dad Project podcast when I was listening to that is, again, around, your habits. And you said something about keeping up is better than catching up. And I think that kind of it resonated with me because I've seen so many guys that have worked so hard in their careers. You mentioned that, many times golf is something that guys kind of reserve to the later years after they've made some money, they've been successful in business. Now they get to play golf. Now they get to enjoy it. And what I've seen personally is that many guys have neglected their physical fitness or their health, their diet, their nutrition, or they're kind of saving all that stuff for later when they have time. But then they feel like they're catching up. Can you explain what you meant when you were talking about keeping up is better than catching up?
Sure. So it's definitely domain dependent. In the context of in the book Raising Men, when we're applying it to our kids, it's about keeping up with the relationship. And something goes sideways for them when they're 16 years old and they have some major drama. You don't want that to be the first time you step in and start parenting. Right. That's the idea there. Inside of SEAL training, they call keeping up is better than catching up, because if you're on a run and you don't keep up, they'll goon squad you, which means they everyone behind me hit the surf, and then the games begin, and it's horrible. So it's much easier to dry heave and keep up, because that little bit of discomfort for the next 15 minutes is sure better than the next hour and a half of getting hammered in the California surf and bear crawls and everything like that. That's the history behind keeping up and catching up. Now, when it comes to, I'm going to speak to men just because the Habits of Heroes, Being the Hero in Your Own Life ebook I'm doing is pointed to men. So, but this is for men and women. You raise girls the same as boys. You just use different words. It's fundamentally the same across the board. But this idea that I've heard just too many guys is like, hey, I'm just going to sacrifice and make money for my family. I'm just going to knuckle down and do this, that, and the other. I'm not going to take care of myself. I'm not going to be fit. I'm not, anything like that. Well, that's going to catch up to you. And it doesn't work in the moment too. We're sharper, faster, better when we're working out in the moment. But those are all victim mentalities. That you're being a victim to your roles, not the hero in them, meaning that part of my job, I'm using stereotypical male roles here, and I know it changes, but I'm speaking for myself. Part of my job is to be the breadwinner for the family and make a lot of money. Well, I could either be a victim of that job and be like, oh man, I can't go work out, or I can't go play golf, guys, or I can't go surf or run or do that Tough Mudder race or whatever because I got to work and I'm out of shape. That's a victim, right? Or I could be the hero in it and create it. Okay, no, I have a job where I need to make a lot of money and I need to be healthy, happy, and wise. And when I'm talking to parents and dads, I'm like, oh, so let me get this straight. You're going to make a lot of money, or make whatever money you do. You're going to sacrifice your body. You're not going to have any fun. You're going to get fat. You're going to get out of shape. You're going to start to get injuries as you get older. And you're going to teach your kids what? You want your kids to live a good life. And how are they going to learn to live a good life if they're watching you burn yourself in mentally and physically? So the whole keep up and catch up is it's much easier to stay in shape and stay happy all your life than try to get in shape and try to get happy someday, because you'll be too late.
Yeah, I think that's so important that, the victim mentality, I didn't really kind of perceive it in that respect, but that's exactly what it is. And, I have a son. I have 3 kids. I have an 8-year-old boy, I have a 6-year-old girl, and I have a 3-year-old son. And it's amazing because you don't really realize how much they're watching you and how much they see, the things that you're doing and the habits that you have, and then they start to adopt them too. And I think you're right. If you don't, we're constantly doing things for our kids or for our clients or whoever, but if we're not living the life that we're also portraying, I'm kind of speaking for myself as a fitness professional and physical therapist. If I were to not work out or eat right or whatever, but I'm teaching and trying to tell my clients and my kids to do all this stuff, it's more that lead by example where they're really going to learn, as opposed to me just telling them but not living it myself. So I really appreciate you talking about that. All right, I want to get into a couple little rapid fire questions here at the end. I like to call it the John Daly round. If you know who John Daly, the golfer, is, he's always known for his sweet mullet. So it's kind of the we've taken care of the business in the front end of the interview. We want to have a little fun, little party in the back of the interview here. Have you, if you've seen the movies, are you more of a Caddyshack or Happy Gilmore fan?
Caddyshack, easily. Oh yeah, big time. I'd chase that squirrel down, blow him up with the C4. That's I think part of what led me into becoming an underwater demolition guy.
Oh, I love it. All right, so you mentioned that you have been on, several of these pirating missions and have had all these different experiences in the SEALs. What's the scariest place that you've ever had to go?
Oh, the scariest place I've ever had to go, I can't talk about it, but it was only there's only a few of us and there's hundreds and thousands of them. So if, no, thousands, or hundreds and thousands. Did I say hundreds of thousands? Not 100,000, but hundreds and thousands.
Gotcha.
Yeah, not 100,000. So that was, although I didn't really ever feel a tremendous amount of fear, but it was very clear to me, like, okay, should things go wrong, they're going all the way wrong.
Right.
The others, so what I think would be more visceral would be, there's something we do when we pirate ships. It's called fast roping. It's basically the helicopter in the middle of the night swoops above a ship, and there's very little amount of space on that ship, and a rope goes down. It could be 90 feet sometimes, and you probably load it out with 70, 80 pounds of gear, bullets, ballistic plates, things to cut down the ship. So you slide down this rope, but you're not attached to anything. So it'd be like rappelling without being connected to the rope. And there's just a little bit of a moment, depending on the gear and the setup, where you're committed to coming out of the helicopter before your hands have committed to being part of that rope. So the scariest place I've been has been in that 2 inches between the helicopter and my hands touching the rope.
Oh my God. I can't.
Oh, yeah, I was pissed. I was like, oh my gosh, why did that just happen? On my way down the rope, I'm like, holy crap, I cannot believe oh boy. Yeah, so that was not my favorite part of that drill.
All right. Do you have any funny stories from back in your training days? Anything, from when either training or on a mission or anything like that, where something maybe went wrong, or just anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, things always go wrong on missions, and SEALs are we're trained in what we call contingency planning. That's why we always win. And interesting when we talk about failure. So I heard that, it made me think about that, and I just always like to share that with people. Like, SEALs train for failure, and that's what we call contingency planning. So when something goes wrong, we're like, yep, that just went wrong, and now here's the next step. That's just a big takeaway for everybody. I'd say one of my, it's back in this mental management thing, but this was before I really learned mental management. I think I just always had a propensity for it. When we were in third phase, you go to an island off the coast of California and spend a month out there. And it's the very last month of training in basic SEAL training. And I remember getting out there, and like I said, I was a corpsman, I was a medic, which is a medic, and I was the corpsman for the class medic. So it was my job to take care of guys if they're hurt or anything like that. And I just remember telling everyone, like, when we first got there, it was like, because it was like Hell Week all over again. Then we never slept. We were always wet. I was like, I can't believe this is happening. We're almost done with it. I was like, I wanted to tell the instructor, like, you guys know we're almost done. There's no reason to keep doing this to us. But it was. And I would tell guys, like, hey, guys, we're going to be doing demolitions, firearms training. They got to let us sleep. Don't worry about this schedule. It's going to go away. And I guess it was more funny in the moment because guys were like, oh, yeah, you're right, Eric, you're totally right. And then the second week, they're like, dude, I don't know, man. I'm just going to plan on it sucking. I'm like, no. The instructor's probably going to get drunk. I bet you PT is going to get canceled. So long story short, 3.5 weeks into it, days away from graduation, I just remember standing in front of the class, and I was just like, hey, fellas, I don't think they're going to let us go to sleep. And these guys were like, dumb. They had an explicit, sure. Like, you got to be kidding me. But sure enough, the next day, though, we had a morning PT, and our instructor got too drunk the night before, and he just showed up, stumbled off the podium, and said it's canceled, and I won. Nice. So that was somewhat funny. It was more funny, I suppose, in the moment as I think about it, but it was a comical month of expectations of much more comfort and joy than what they provided us.
Man, I can't even imagine the things that you guys went through, the tiredness, the pain, the struggle, all those days, and then not being able to sleep on top of it, and not knowing when you're ever going to be able to get to that to bed or get that sleep has to be just brutal. Being obviously a sniper instructor, I have to ask you, what's the longest shot you've ever made, or that one of your students has ever made?
Ooh, I'm sure they've gone out longer than this. I know in sniper school, the longest shot I'd be like, okay, I hit that target was a mile, so 1,600 meters. But there's weapon systems now that are getting out a couple thousand. yards or meters, depending on what side of the pond they're shooting it on. So it can get, I've heard of even shots out at 3,000, but I mean, at that point, you got to question how effective the bullet is. But for sure, a mile with a 50 cal sniper gun, and I target a mile out, which is kind of a cool milestone.
Oh my God, that's amazing. All right, Eric, first I want to thank you for your time coming on the show, but I want to ask you, what's your mission as you're moving forward in your career and you know, all the things you're doing, writing a book? I also know that you have a program called the SEAL Mindset. So if you could just kind of give us a little idea of where you're going from here and what your mission is with all the authoring and these courses and everything that you have.
Sure. So 2000s, I'm not like a New Year's resolution guy, but it just worked out in business that right now in January in 2017, I made a major pivot in my work. One of the things I did at the end of last year, I was doing client interviews or customer reader interviews, talking to people on the phone. You know, as a writer, I can connect with hundreds of thousands of people, but I don't really connect with 5 or 10. That experience really triggered me, and it really woke me up to the fact that why I've been successful as a writer is not because I'm a good writer, but because I'm sharing stories about being in the trenches with other people and producing performance beyond their perceived limits. And you don't have to be poetic. You just be like, hey, check this out. I took this guy from a SEAL to a sniper, or, you know, whatever it was. I recognized at those interviews, like, man, I'm missing that human contact where I'm taking a human being and actually leveling them up to a space beyond what they can get by themselves. So this year I'm producing what I call a strategic training group. It'll be a 7-man group. And the purpose is to pull these people out of this massive information infotainment world into true action. And the overarching thing, you'll hear the word hero a lot, is to redefine what being a hero is in this day and age. What is it to be a hero for us? Not what society says. Same thing with manhood and masculinity, is to redefine it and live that life. Live that life with these 7 people and then share that experience and everything with others. And I'll use those experiences with the actual book that will be called, or currently is called, Habits of Heroes. And that's my 2017. I'm going to journey with those 7 people, and I'm going to write the book, and also, you know, it'll go into my blog as well as I go. And I haven't been more excited about what I'm doing since I first started writing, because we're going to impact for sure the lives of these 7 people who end up being in the group, and the lives of all the other people, because we're going to share that knowledge with them.
That sounds amazing. Do you already know who the 7 people are, what their backgrounds are, and kind of what their mission is?
No, that's why I was excited when you reached out to me for the podcast. I'm like, oh, perfect timing, because I got to start telling people about it. I literally, right before our call, made the final edits to that ebook, Habits of Heroes, Being the Hero in Your Own Life. Yeah. So I do have a good handful of people that I'll do a personal invite to. So I would imagine 3 or 4 of those spots will be filled up by the people I've already have in my head that I'm going to be like, hey, I want you in this. But the other handful, that ebook will go on my website, ericdavis215.com. And the 215 is my Buds class number, because there's so many dang Eric Davises in the world. And it'll be like right up front, and someone drop their email. They'll read it, and if they're like, yep, that's me, I got a little, you know, the whole interweb thing. They'll click a link, and the more info comes, and they click a link, and we schedule a phone, you know, all the magic happens, however that goes. But yeah, so there'll be a handful of spots for people I don't know yet, because I want some people I don't know yet, because people always surprise me for better and worse, but in this domain, usually for better.
Fantastic. Awesome. We'll definitely have all that stuff linked up in the show notes. Oh, one other question that I have to ask. I ask everybody that comes on the show. If you had the chance to play 18 holes of golf with anyone in the world, past, present, future, doesn't matter, who would it be, where would you play, and why?
Yeah, I gave some thought to that kind of question before we got on. And it was a tough one, but what I came up with was my 14-year-old self. It's what hit me. I was like, it's my 14-year-old self. I wanted to go back and be like, this is who you're going to become. And I want to tell him that so that he would have the confidence and courage to have treated himself better. You know what I mean? It's just, if you know you're going to become something, I'm not going to call it greatness, but something that you consider great, you act and move a different way. And it's not like I have regrets, but that's where my heart hit me in the heart. And I'd want to play it anywhere overseas that's also by a surf spot, because I absolutely love doing things like playing golf and then knowing I'm going to go surf after, or surfing in the morning, like, oh man, this is so cool because we're going to go eat lunch and then we're going to play golf after. Those are like my magic days when I do a multi-sport thing. So yeah, myself, and just say, hey man, it's you're going to be good, man. It's going to go somewhere pretty awesome.
That sounds amazing. Hey, before I let you go, is there anything that we didn't capture that, you kind of think is something important to create that parallel between, your experience, what the golfers listening are experiencing, or one last piece of actionable advice that they could take with them today?
Yeah, I'll leave it to everyone to redefine this for themselves. But if you're in a spot like, man, I need to be better at my job, I need to be better at my role as a husband, I need to be better at my role as a father or a wife, or, I'm sorry, ladies, I'm not leaving you guys out. I'm just in that man book right now. You can't just do it by burning yourself in on that thing. Give yourself more than permission to cross-train in things like golf, things like surfing, things like running, hiking, whatever it is for you. But in this case, we're talking to golfers. It's not an elective any more than art is elective. The art and music are not electives. Those are the source for your ability to do well in math. We have it so backwards in society. This country is not too bad because we're creative and we invent new things, so we're a little better at it than some other countries. But that's what I'd leave people with, man. This isn't recreation. It's not like again. It's not it's not this thing you do when you have extra time. It's the thing you do to get you extra time. So that's what I would leave people with.
I love that. It's definitely kind of a shift in perception of the way that we look at those different things. So, Eric, I got to say thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. Thank you for your service. Absolutely. We appreciate everything that you've sacrificed and done for our country. We wouldn't be here without you guys. What's a way that we can support you, and where can people find more info on you and everything that you're doing?
Best place is my website, front page, www, whatever that goes, ericdavis215.com. Download that hero ebook that's going to be there. Once you do that, even if that stuff's not for you, you'll be on my mailing list. And my aim is to share value in the lessons learned. And that's the best thing. Any offers we have coming up in the future, but my focus is on teaching people to be the hero in their own life so that they can be the hero in the lives of others this year. And that's what you'll find right there on the homepage by the time this comes out.
Awesome, man. Doing great stuff, and we're definitely we'll have everything on the show notes so people can find you, all your social media links and everything. So you guys go and check out episode number 124 with Eric Davis on 18strong.com. You'll find everything there. Eric, thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon, man.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Eric. And Eric, if you're listening, I first, again, want to just thank you for taking the time to come on the show. I know you're a very busy guy. And also, we here at 18 Strong, the entire 18 Strong community, we thank you for your service and everything that you guys do. If you, as a listener, want any more information on Eric, you can find everything at 18strong.com/Eric-Davis. You can also look him up by searching for episode number 124 on the website. We'll have all the information to his book and everything, and some of the other things that we talked about in the show for you to go check out. I wanted to mention something that we're doing here at 18 Strong that I think is going to be very cool. Let me start out first by saying that I feel like we have kind of let you guys down. So I know that we've had over 120 incredible guests on the show, and we take a lot of pride in the fact that we're bringing some of the world's greatest coaches, experts, and players in the world of golf into your earbuds. But in many cases, that's kind of where it has stopped. You get the information from week to week and episode to episode, but then that's kind of the end of it. I know there's a lot of questions you probably have, and you'd love to be able to ask them to the guests on the show, but it's not really possible because this is obviously a one-way media of communication. But what if that wasn't the case? What if you were able to ask those questions? Well, we've been trying to figure out how we could bring this community of bogey-proof golfers together so you can all connect, everybody can ask questions, and we can all kind of communicate with each other, and you can communicate with the best in the world. So I see a big change happening in the world of golf now in performance, nutrition, mindset, and that's kind of what this whole show is all about. The new generation is definitely taking this much more seriously, and the game is definitely changing. In fact, we see this as a movement that's happening in the game, and we like to think that we here at 18 Strong are one of the voices to help propel this idea of golfers being more fit, more strong, and simply healthier. So as you know, every single person that's been on this show has been a huge ambassador for this cause, helping golfers get better, get stronger, and enjoy the game for many, many years to come. And if you're listening to the show, I also consider you one of these ambassadors for this movement. It doesn't matter if you're looking to get on tour or if you're just looking to be able to walk 18 holes without pain, there's something that we can learn from you also. So in an effort to join forces all in one place with you and so many of these great individuals that we've met over the years and that we will meet with 18 Strong still, we decided to create a place where we can all gather. So what we did is we created a Facebook group for all of us to communicate, all of us to be able to kind of hang out and interact. And what do you think we're calling it? We're calling it the 18 Strong Movement because, again, that's what we see happening here in the world of golf. So it's a completely free group, but we are going to keep it private. So this is primarily going to be for listeners of this show. Obviously, it's here at the end of the episode, so only the listeners of the show are finding out about this right away. But it's also going to be for many of the people that we've connected with over the years. For instance, the guys from Rad Roll or the guys from Super Speed Golf and many of the other guests that we've had on the show. The idea here is that this is going to be a place for us all to share our ideas, ask our questions, and provide support to each other throughout all of our journeys. The idea here at 18 Strong has always been to bring you into our conversations on the podcast, and now we can actually all communicate in this way. So we're literally just launching this, and we'll be able to share more with you as we go. But for now, if you're interested in joining the group, all you have to do is go to Facebook and look for the private group called the 18 Strong Movement and simply ask to join. Once we verify that you're not a crazy person and we stalk through your photos on Facebook a little bit, we'll bring you into the mix and you can get involved as you want, or you can just kind of sit on the sidelines and lay back and watch some of the different communications that happen. But I think this is going to be an incredible place for a lot of great communication and conversations to start, and really for some friendships to be made, and to help grow this whole mission of the bogey-proof golfer, making golfers stronger, more fit, and healthier with all the people that we've connected with here at 18 Strong. Now, one thing I do want to mention, I know there's probably a lot of you out there that are not on Facebook, and so this is not an option for you at this point. But this has been, we thought about this for a long time, and this is possibly the easiest way for all of us to get together. And if in the future we find something different, we're going to go ahead and do that. But for now, Facebook is definitely something that most of us know how to use and have been on. So if you're not on Facebook, I would encourage you, even if it's just simply for the purpose of getting into this group, go ahead and do that. If you're a youngster who thinks Facebook is just for old people, which I know all the young players that I work with absolutely think that's the case, here's the deal. Go ahead and get back on Facebook because none of your friends are going to be on there. So you're going to have an edge on all of those guys that you're playing golf with because you're going to have access to some of the coolest people in the world of golf simply by having an old man Facebook account. So just some words of wisdom there from an old guy like myself. All right. That's enough for now. Don't forget, go to Facebook, the 18 Strong Movement, look up the private group, ask to join. We're going to be blowing some things up. We've got some incredible guests that are coming on the show. Thank you for listening to me ramble for these last few minutes, and I appreciate you. Look forward to seeing you or talking to you next week with another fantastic episode. Can't wait to share this one with you. So until next time, and don't forget, if you want to get your hands on your Super Speed Golf clubs, go to superspeedgolf.com. Use the code 18Strong, and those guys will hook you up. All right, train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.
Thanks for listening to the 18 Strong podcast at www.18strong.com. And remember, train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.